Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 70 of the World of Sports podcast. I'm your host, Diego Sandoval, and joined with me, as always, is my co-host, Logan Ring. Logan, say what's up to the people.
What's up, everybody?
We've got a great episode in store. I'm in a great mood. If you're a baseball fan, you should be in a great mood. Major League Baseball is back. I guess we'll just open with that before we get into all the intro stuff, because that's just amazing. They were able to get it done. MLB and the MLBPA got a deal done. So there will be a 162 game season this year, starting on April 7th. The games that were quote unquote supposed to be canceled, they basically are going to turn those into 9-inning doubleheaders. We don't have the exact specifics on everything they agreed on, but we know universal DH is 100% happening. Another 100% is that in extra innings, there's no longer an automatic runner on second. Thank you. I didn't like it. I get that it sped up the game, but it really didn't. And so they just kind of said, we'll get rid of it. Kind of floated around that the shift will be banned and there will be bigger bases, but that hasn't been put into I guess words, they haven't kind of formally made that clear. We'll see. But bottom line, baseball's back. If you're a baseball fan, you got to be stoked.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I know you're a bigger baseball fan than I am, but it's just something that you can put on all the time. 162 games for a team that you like is just awesome.
Right.
And I mean, I would have been happy with basically anything they would have agreed on, to be honest, because I just want to watch it. But it seems like they could be moving in the right direction for a lot of things. The runner on second was one thing that I felt was just kind of like it was going to be a temporary thing, and it felt weird whenever it was happening. But yeah, I'm just super excited that they're back. I think that the MLB has a chance to get into relevance again. And we saw that a lot last year. And then this was just awful for them to have this lockout right now. I felt like it was just a terrible timing for it. So yeah, I'm just super happy they're back. I'm excited to watch the baseball. Spring training should be happening soonish, I hope. And then, yeah, I'm just hyped to watch my team again. The Guardians, first time ever.
Quote unquote spring training starts today. Games start next week, but players are reporting today, which is very exciting.
It's quick.
Before we get into it, that's just kind of our intro. Follow us on our social medias. Head over to our Instagram, TWOS podcast. All the links will be found down below. Watch us on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Give us a rating if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll start with Major League Baseball. We still have a lot to kind of unfold before the season starts. In less than a month, there are superstar players who aren't on teams yet, and we are, I think, 27 days out from opening day. And that's what's pretty crazy to think that a player, of the caliber of Carlos Correa, Freddie Freeman, they're going to have to be on their team for 20 days probably, and then they're going to have to start playing for them. So we have our MLB free agency best fits that we're going to do. So this list of the top 10 free agents was compiled by Fangraphs. So it's not our list, don't come at us, but at whatever order you have them, I'd say these are probably the 10 best free agents, no matter how you look at it. We are going to be giving our best fits for those guys, so where we think that they will land. And most likely, most of these guys will find a home in the next 2 to 3 days. It's currently Friday, March 11th. The CBA was agreed on last night, Thursday, March 10th. And with players reporting now, I feel like it's only a matter of time until the first big one happens, and then it's all going to kind of go from that. So MLB fans, stay on Twitter, be ready. A lot of stuff is going to happen. All right, let's start with this list. Do we want to start at the top or the bottom? What do you think?
Let's just do the top. Why not?
All right. This list has Carlos Correa as the number one free agent left. I would agree with that, given his age and his talent. Logan, this one's to you. What
Yeah.
is your best fit for Carlos Correa?
Yeah, we did this sort of prediction like 6 months ago or whatever when the offseason started. And for some of the things they've changed, just because of new situations, whatever. I know Javi Baez is now a Tiger, but I still got Carlos Correa going there. I think that they can switch positions, do whatever. I think Carlos Correa might just play short and Javi will move somewhere, and I think that's totally fine. But I just love this fit for him. It's the same reasoning that I gave a while ago, but I think it's just a player that you need on a team to kind of be like the main face of the franchise. They got a lot of young players coming up with a lot of talent, but they don't really have a quote unquote superstar. And Carlos Correa, maybe not that good, but I mean, he's a very good player and still only 26 years old. He can come in, play elite defense. He's a great hitter. And I mean, I think he wants to get out of Houston. It's pretty clear that that's going to happen. Um, and I mean, the Tigers have a lot of money that they can offer him. I think that they gave a lot of money to Javi Baez, and it kind of, to me, seems like they're going to go not all in, but make a big push towards it. You saw last year that the Tigers made big strides in sort of just developing their talent, and their record wasn't fantastic, but it was a lot better than a lot of people thought they were, and they just looked a lot better. And I think it's just a perfect fit for him there. AJ Hinch is there as the manager. He's got a good relationship with Carlos Correa. I think that's a big factor, and it's kind of been talked about for a long time, but I still think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Carlos Correa at 26 in baseball terms is entering his prime. I know baseball is getting younger for sure, but in terms of position players and hitters, the prime is generally your late 20s to early 30s. So he still has room to improve. The Tigers have the money. Just this offseason, you mentioned Javi Baez. They brought in Eduardo Rodriguez, who had a really solid season for the Red Sox last year. And I think if they bring in Carlos Correa, they're rebuilding the right way. They had a year where they could, like you said, develop the talent that they have in-house, but then to go out and grab a couple big free agents, I feel like that franchise would be heading in the right direction. Just a note on Carlos Correa, it was reported that the Cubs have entered the sweepstakes. So that's, I guess, another team to look out for. Obviously, the Astros are in play. And then the Yankees, I believe, are the other team. The Dodgers, I think, expressed a little bit of interest before the lockout, but I haven't heard
That'd be
anything
very
about it.
weird.
It would be very odd. Especially considering I assume he'll sign an 8-year deal or whatever it may be. So Dodger fans would just have to deal with that. But I haven't heard much traction in terms of Dodgers and Correa since the lockout ended, so I'm not sure if that's still there. But I think the obvious suitors are Astros, Yankees, Tigers, Cubs. You could possibly throw the Dodgers in there. Moving on, they have the number 2 free agent as Chris Bryant. This is a guy that I could see going to a lot of different teams because he's so versatile. He can play third, first, in every outfield spot. Really, he could help any team that he goes to. But I have him. I think his best fit would be going to the Seattle Mariners. They just lost their third baseman. Kyle Seager retired. It's a team that's ready to compete now. They didn't make the playoffs last year, but they surprised everybody and were like a couple games out from the playoffs. This offseason, they already brought in Robbie Ray. So I feel like bringing in Chris Bryant along with Robbie Ray on top of that young core that has proven that they can compete for a playoff spot puts them automatically into a top 2 spot in the AL West. A lot of stuff still has to be determined in the AL West, but I think bringing in Chris Bryant gives you the versatility in that lineup, but also gives you a steady. He'll hit at the 2, 3, 4 spot in your lineup wherever you want him. They have the money. Money isn't an issue. Most of their players are younger on their rookie contracts, which is kind of funny because that's kind of what this whole lockout was about. Younger players getting more money, but younger players not getting that much money gives the Mariners a shot to get a guy like Chris Bryant. He's also been tied to the Phillies with Bryce Harper, I know. But I like him in a Mariners uniform come the start of the season.
Yeah, I would absolutely love him on the Mariners. I think that's a perfect fit, and just everybody should be rooting for them to do well. So yeah, I really like that one. Moving on to the number 3, we got Trevor Story. This is one where I debated a lot. I looked at a lot of different people's opinions on this, and I kind of came to the conclusion that the Astros, I think, would actually be a pretty good fit for him. And I wouldn't love that because I like Trevor Story a lot, and I'm not a big fan of the Astros. But obviously, they're going to be needing a new shortstop with Carlos Correa pretty much certainly leaving. And Trevor Story, I think, is a guy who wants to win, and the Astros can give him a lot of money too. I think that it's kind of a perfect fit for them. He's been a player where it's always had an asterisk on his stats because he plays at Coors Field. And to an extent, that's very true. I mean, obviously, you're going to have inflated stats, but he's still an amazing hitter. He plays defense. He's all right. But I think on the Astros, he's just going to be a perfect fit for them. The production, I think, would be similar to Carlos Correa, not in the same way, but he's a power hitter. And I think the Astros obviously love just having power hitters on their team. It seems like everybody steps up when they're in their lineup. I think that they want to move on from sort of the narrative that they have, where obviously it's the cheating thing still. They're getting booed. Everything's happening, bringing in some new players. I mean, I don't think people are going to boo Trevor Story if he goes there. That doesn't really make any sense. And I think it's just a new culture to bring in. He's just a perfect fit for them, and they're going to need some more players because obviously they're still a really good team. And I think this is sort of a big name player you can get for them.
Yeah, Trevor Story is definitely an interesting situation. It's always interesting when you have a big name leaving Coors Field. The last one was Nolan Arenado, and he proved that he was good outside of Coors Field as well with the Cardinals. I think Story has the talent. Again, his stats are most definitely inflated, but I think any team that gets him is getting a good young kind of core piece for their franchise. Astros, I have floated around. The Phillies again are a name that's getting tossed into Trevor Story. The Yankees struck out on Corey Seager already, and that was kind of their goal to get a shortstop. So if they strike out on Seager, Story, and Correa, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I could definitely see if the Astros do in fact move on from Correa. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be able to just fill that back in with an all-star shortstop, which is kind of crazy to say, but yeah, I like him to the Astros, and I like that idea of them. They're not going to dismantle the championship team, although there are not a lot of people left from it. But yeah, I think moving on from Correa would get rid of a lot of that hate, I think, because he was kind of the face of that, I would say. Altuve wasn't as much involved in it as we've learned, but I think moving on from Correa and bringing in a guy like Story, who is pretty well liked, would be a good move for the Astros. The number 4 free agent that they have here is Freddie Freeman. My fit is, you could call it biased, but I think he fits best with the Dodgers in terms of the teams that are in on him in free agency. Because the first thing is, the Braves are obviously, I guess, objectively speaking, he should go back to the Braves. Like, I feel like everybody thinks that, but something inside me says that if they couldn't get a deal done before the lockout, which they knew was coming, and they knew they had a limited amount of time to work out a deal, after they had just won the World Series and they couldn't get a deal done, I don't think that relationship is as good as people are saying it is. Because if you're the Braves and for some reason you don't want to pay him his money, you have Acuna, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Dansby Swanson. You have guys to fall back on. But I don't know. Something tells me that Freddie Freeman to the Braves is increasingly less likely, just because if they're that far apart where they couldn't get a deal done before they knew there wasn't going to be any action for months, that's just not a good sign for me. For the Dodgers, they lost their second best, if you want to put Max Muncy in their left-handed bat, in Corey Seager before the lockout. Seager's with the Rangers now, so that's obviously a need in the middle of the lineup. Max Muncy can play second, but he also might be out for the start of the season. There's a little bit of fogginess when it comes to his elbow injury. And money is obviously not a problem with the Dodgers. They'll pay him what he wants. It's going to come down to whether Freddie Freeman is willing to take a pay cut to stay with the Braves. And it sounded like before the lockout, the two sides were very far apart in terms of money. I don't know if the Braves came into it expecting him to like be like, oh, this is my team. I'll take significantly less than I deserve just because I've always been with the Braves. And we know that that's not a good mindset when it comes to re-signing your star homegrown talent. I mean, it happened with the Dodgers and Corey Seager as well. But yeah, I just think objectively he should go back to the Braves. But with the way that that relationship doesn't look like it's as strong as people may think, the Dodgers are definitely, I'd say, make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think at the start of the offseason, it's like, why was there even a chance that we're talking about
Right.
him leaving? He just won a championship. I mean, why would he want a World Series? I mean, why would he want to leave? But yeah, I mean, I just don't really have an argument for why they wouldn't be able to work something out. And like, that's a lot of just pressure and stress to put on someone for a lockout to happen where you haven't secured your money yet. Like, I would be pretty angry if I wasn't able to get a deal done. Um, and I don't want to see him go to the Dodgers just because I want some more parity. I mean, they get a big free agent every single year. Um, but hey, I mean, it would be fun. And I mean, they seem to get one every single time. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. Um, but yeah, I can't lie and say that it wouldn't be a pretty good fit there. But yeah, another Dodger right now, at least, or going into free agency is Clayton Kershaw. And you can talk about him a little bit more, but I'll start this off. I mean, he's a player who it kind of seems like he's old and everything just because he's not in his prime anymore. He's only 33. And I mean, I know the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit more, but he's still been relatively healthy. He came off an injury this season, but I just don't see him leaving, if I'm being honest. It just doesn't really make sense to me. And I mean, he could do it. Maybe he could get more money or more of a bigger role, I guess. But like, even that doesn't really make any sense. I think the Dodgers are an organization that wants him, and he's obviously been there his whole career. He's won Cy Youngs there. I mean, he's won a World Series. He's done pretty much everything. I don't know why you'd want to leave LA and this team that obviously you like being at. And I mean, he's still a really good pitcher. Like, sure, he's not in his prime anymore. He's still a very good pitcher. And I don't see why the Dodgers wouldn't want to pay him. I think he's good, great for their team. I'm great for just building chemistry with other players. Yeah, you can expand on this. It's just, I don't see him leaving the Dodgers.
Yeah, I can't imagine him in another uniform. I mean, you spend your whole career, you win 3 Cy Youngs, an MVP, a World Series, and people want to say, oh, he's going to leave all of that to just play for a bad team in his hometown. I just don't see Clayton Kershaw doing that. For me, I think it's either re-sign with the Dodgers or retire. I know he's not old at all in terms of starting pitching. Starting pitchers can play for a while, but yes, he has been injured kind of here and there in the past couple of seasons. But when he's been on the mound, he's a very solid, consistent starting pitcher. He's not the Clayton Kershaw we knew from the 2010 through 2015 where he just dominated everybody. But he's a guy that can be a very good number 2, number 3 starting pitcher, which honestly is what the Dodgers need. They have Walker Buehler and they have Julio Urias, who have proven to be very good 1-2 arms, and nobody knows what's happening with Trevor Bauer. But no matter that case, Clayton Kershaw is going to be a solid arm in, I think it can only be the Dodgers rotation. I think those are the 2 options. If I'm him, you go back to your team, that the organization that has given you everything, or you step away. You did everything you can do for your organization. I think that last ring was kind of his final. All right, I did what I needed to do. So I honestly don't know what's going to happen. There haven't been many rumblings about it, but the Dodgers are obviously interested in bringing him back. But yeah, I think it's Dodgers or retire for Kershaw. Moving on to another left-handed starting pitcher, Carlos Rodon is the next name on this list. He's a guy I kind of went back and forth on because he is part of that kind of White Sox starting staff that they said, oh, this is going to be a solid rotation, but what we're really going to have is a high, like an elite offense, which they did. But that starting pitching kind of crumbled against the Astros in the playoffs last year. So do they move on? I think so. And I think a fit for Carlos Rodon is the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Um, it's another team. It's very similar to the Mariners situation, I think. They not different in terms of their team makeup, but the team mindset is definitely win now. And they have pieces here and there that can come together to win now. But they just need to add, I think, obviously starting pitching. I think that's been the storyline for the Angels for what feels like Mike Trout's whole career, to be completely honest, is if they had pitching, they would be a good team. They brought in Syndergaard, and I think Syndergaard's kind of like almost like a test run. It's a 1-year deal. See if he still has it. Honestly, nobody can guess if he still has it. But I think Carlos Rodon would be a great left-handed arm in that rotation. He slides right into however you want to consider 1A or 1B with Ohtani. Ohtani's kind of a weird pitcher to put into a rotation because you don't know how often he's going to pitch. But Rodon is a guy that will start every 5th day consistently. He'll give you solid numbers. He's not going to be out of this world, but that's not what the Angels need. The Angels just need consistency from their starters. They have offensive production. Trout, Rendon, hopefully healthy. Ohtani, David Fletcher, Jared Walsh. That team has bats, but it's just the consistency they need from the starting rotation. And I think Rodon would bring that for the Angels.
I love that fit. I'm all for pitching for the Angels. I think that they need to get more than they have already. I want to see Shohei and Trout in the playoffs.
We deserve it.
We deserve it. Everybody deserves it. It's ridiculous they haven't. But yeah, moving on to the next guy. We got Nicholas Castellanos. This is one I found really interesting because I think he can go to pretty much any team and be a good productive player. He's consistently a top batter in the league. I mean, he's been that for like 6 years, and he hasn't really had the accolades like all-stars or anything, but he's consistently had like an OPS around 850. Like he gets some home runs, good batting average. And last season we saw that he really stepped up with like a 310 batting average. And that kind of made him burst onto the scene where it's like, oh, this guy's good, even though he's been good for that long. But the fit I really like for him, and a fit that I feel like the team needs to really bring in someone because they haven't done anything yet. That's the Padres. I love that fit for him because the Padres have really just not done anything. And I mean, we saw last season how disappointing they were. I think bringing in a guy like this obviously isn't going to fix your problems, but it's definitely going to be a step up. I think a guy who, I mean, I don't want to call anybody out, but like you could slide him into like the Jerks and Profar spot. And I mean, he's going to give you a lot more production there. Castellanos isn't the best outfielder, but like, who cares? I mean, he's not bad enough where it's even close to taking away his statistics for hitting. And the Padres, they got the talent. I mean, the fit doesn't even look bad. They just haven't been good for some reason last season. And the season before, we saw what they could be. I still know that they have that in them. It's just really weird. I can't really explain what happened last year, but I think bringing in a guy like Nicholas Castellanos could be a boost for them, even if it's just like morale or anything. Something needs to happen. I feel like if they don't do anything, then it just doesn't really make sense. And I think it's going to be a higher chance that they have a disappointing season again. And I think putting Castellanos in there, I mean, you're putting an all-star in there, a silver slugger, an already very, very talented team. But I think you need to bring in someone else, hopefully just to help everybody, I don't know, be happy again. I don't know what's wrong with the Padres, but something needs to change.
Nicholas Castellanos fits the Padres kind of vibe and their aura. He's exciting. He is not afraid to speak out about stuff. That's what the Padres, I think, are built on, is this excitement. I'm just gonna say Eric Hosmer wasn't very good last year, like not at all. He's a phenomenal fielding first baseman, and that's what he's built his career on. But at some point, that can't be carrying your offensive stats. Will Myers also struggled a bit. Will Myers is a guy you can also slide to first if you don't want Hosmer's bat in the lineup. Castellanos is also a guy that is hugely impacted by the DH and being in the National League. You can put him in the DH spot. he's not, like you said, he's not the best outfielder. So if you don't want that liability, just have him be your DH. And it'll go from there. He can fit in pretty much every team, like you said. And I think just he would bring that kind of revitalized energy to the Padres that they so badly need, because I think it's clear that that's what that team feeds on. And they just didn't have any of it at the end of last season, when they just pretty much fell apart, honestly. And Castellanos is a guy that brings that. Let's move on to number 8, Kyle Schwarber. He was a very interesting one for me. He's a guy that really, and Logan is stepping away, so I'm going to be talking to myself here. Kyle Schwarber, he is a guy that's really impacted by the universal DH. They just need another, the National League has always had the pitcher hitting, obviously. But the DH brings another aspect of power. And I think, welcome back, Logan.
Thank you.
I'm talking about Kyle Schwarber, and I'm talking about he is probably one of the most impacted guys by the universal designated hitter.
Oh, absolutely.
Aside from Nelson Cruz, I'd say is the most. But Kyle Schwarber will fit in any lineup, because I think he's not that good of a fielder. They'll just put him at the DH. And I think a team that needs power bats, and if they want to put him in the outfield, they can stick him in the left, is the Philadelphia Phillies. I like Schwarber to the Phillies. They need a power bat to help out Bryce Harper in that lineup. Harper coming off an MVP season, but he didn't have much protecting him in the lineup. There wasn't a guy that they could, like teams relatively often they pitched around Harper to get to the next guy in the lineup. But if you have a guy like Schwarber backing him up, maybe you don't want to put lefties back to back. You put Real Muto in the middle of them. He's just a force in that lineup that we've seen can go on tears. He hit 12 home runs in 10 games last season in a stretch. He's a guy that will bring automatic power wherever he goes. Philadelphia is a decent hitter's park. I think Schwarber to the Phillies is a good fit.
Yeah, I love that fit. I love the fact that the DH is universal now, just because it gives some of the players who, like Nelson Cruz, can't really play in the field at all. It just gives them a chance to really be as good as they are, because if you can only play in half the league, that really limits your potential. And so I think in the long run, we're going to see a lot of changes or I guess it's just one change, but like where there's a certain type of player where the DH is that guy. And obviously there's a few players like that now, but that's a real position now where you don't really have to be a fielder at all. If you're that good, you can play anywhere. And I really like that. So Kyle Schwarber, yeah, anywhere with the Phillies. I love that. So my last guy is Anthony Rizzo. And I really like Anthony Rizzo. I think he's a great guy. And I just think he's great for any organization, just the face of him just being there. But also, I mean, the production has been there. Defensively, he's been there. I think he's going to stay with the Yankees, though. I think it's a good fit for him. And, he had some production when he was there for like 50 games. It wasn't fantastic, but I think you knew what you were getting with him. And I think it was good enough. And the Yankees, it's been a big deal where they have so many right-handed batters. You need a lefty in there. And I think Anthony Rizzo just fits perfectly with them. I love the short porch and right for him. I mean, he can just poke a ball out there and it's a home run. It's the same thing with like Didi, where I just loved seeing his home runs because it was just so easy, it seemed like, when it happened. But yeah, I think the Yankees just, I don't know what it is with them where they can never get it done, but it just seems like they've got to have one year where it happens. And I don't think blowing it up, I think bringing players back like this, like I think it was a perfect fit for them. And I think Anthony Rizzo just, I don't know. I feel like he would just want to stay somewhere where he's wanted. And I felt like he liked the Yankees. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, they can pay him a lot of money too. He's 31. He's not super old yet. And the Yankees are very willing to pay players money. So I like the fit. He doesn't have to move. He's got that starting spot. It's interesting to see where like a guy like Luke Voit plays, if he's going to be a DH or whatever. But I think that's a pretty easy decision to try to bring Rizzo back.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Luke Voit because when Rizzo first got traded there was a bit of butting heads because Luke Voit was a little bit butthurt about getting moved to the DH spot. And obviously the Yankees are full of power hitters. So Luke Voit wasn't playing every day because they were switching around designated hitters, and he was mad about that. But Anthony Rizzo is one of the best, if not the best, fielding first baseman in baseball. That's undisputed. He has, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but he has a lot of gold gloves. Um, I think coming back to the Yankees makes the most sense for the organization. Luke Voit is just going to have to suck it up and accept that he's going to be a designated hitter. You're not going to outfield Anthony Rizzo. Nobody is. um, but yeah, I like Rizzo to the Yankees. There are talks possibly going back to the Cubs for him, but I don't know. I don't really see that happening. Rizzo to the Yankees makes sense. Now the 10th and final free agent, the only reliever on the list, and that is Kenley Jansen. He is a very weird situation because he is getting up there in age. He had really struggled in 2019, 2020, but last year he had a really good season. He had a bounce back year. Kind of unfortunate for the Dodgers, at least, because now he's going to want a bit more money than he would have. But at the end of the day, I have him re-signing with the Dodgers. I just think that no other team is going to pay an aging veteran reliever as much as the Dodgers will. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. And it's also a fit. I mean, if the Dodgers don't sign Kenley Jansen, there's a big hole in that bullpen. Joe Kelly is still a free agent. There's mutual interest that they want to come to a deal, but he's still not on the team. Corey Knebel signed with the Phillies earlier this year. He was another guy that was big in that bullpen. Dodgers have Blake Trinan, so that if Kenley doesn't come back, he can just slide into that closer role. But it's reported that both sides have a mutual interest. As a Dodger fan, my only kind of reservation is that we're going to pay him too much money for a 3 to 4 year contract. I'd rather us give him 2 years and make him earn his keep for those 2 years. But yeah, I just think coming back to the Dodgers is what makes the most sense. It's where he's played his whole career. And I mean, statistically, he's one of the greatest closers of all time. So I just think it makes sense for him to stay.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are Dodgers fans, and this is kind of a polarizing player because the closing job is really hard.
Right.
And if you mess up, you get blamed for everything. And when you do your job, it's just kind of like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets blamed a lot because sure, he has a couple hiccups every year. And he gives up a game when he shouldn't. But that's literally every single closer. And I mean, if you're just looking at it based on what he's done, he is one of the best closers in the league for the last, 12 years.
Yeah.
I just don't think it makes sense to try to move on from him. I think you're going to want to pay him. Sure. I mean, it could be too much. You definitely know more than me, but he's just that's a really important position to have a good player in. And I feel like Kenley is just someone who consistently is one of the best in the league. And for a team that's as good as the Dodgers and as deep as the Dodgers, I think this is a player that you're going to want to pay. And he's been a Dodger his whole career. So I think that they're going to bring him back. But I know a couple people who don't want him. So it's a little interesting.
There are plenty. I've always been a big Kenley Jansen believer and fan, even, through his tough times in 2020. But there are definitely many that will have those like, I think it's kind of a stupid argument because it's like he'll blow like 5 games maybe in a season, but then he'll have 40 saves. And it's like that's good. Like,
yeah,
that's really good. But I think it comes with, we've seen the narrative with, other teams who are of high status. You look at like the Lakers and the Dodgers, it's the same kind of vibe where if you're not perfect or if you're not the best team, that's when you just start to get haters. But that's what comes with the market, with the fan base. But yeah, I want to see him back with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I don't think there's a more stressful baseball position than a closer for like the Yankees or the Dodgers. Like that would be a horrible position to be in.
Under the most scrutiny for sure.
Yeah,
that's it for Major League Baseball. Our free agent picks are our best fits. A lot will be determined in, I would say, honestly, this weekend, because I think players are going to want to start reporting on Monday. So stay tuned. A lot to happen. Speaking of a lot happening, the National Football League had a wild week. It was it's the combine happened. The combine went well. Jordan Davis is a freak of nature. He's running a 4.6 at 380 pounds or whatever it is. It's ridiculous.
Jeez.
But in terms of organization wide, there were franchise tags. The deadline has come and passed for that. There were big trades. And there are some rumors going around. So let's start with the franchise tags. If you don't know what a franchise tag is, basically a team can use it on one player every season if they want to. No team is required to use a franchise tag. For example, my Raiders haven't used one since I think 2012. And basically what it is a 1-year contract that guarantees the player will be paid the average of a top 5 player at their position. So you take the top 5 highest paid players at, say, the wide receiver position. And if you franchise tag a wide receiver, he gets paid the average of that number. And you cannot use it on the same player in back-to-back seasons. So that kind of eliminates the people just, I'll just re-sign him, keep doing that. Couple of notes. Packers franchise tag Davante Adams. I think that was pretty obvious once we found out Aaron Rodgers is coming back, which is another piece of news that I'll talk about a little bit later. That's a pretty obvious one. Getting a steal, obviously, with a franchise tag of Davante Adams. He's the best wide receiver in football. The Bengals franchise tag Jesse Bates. That's a great deal as well. I'd say he's a top 2 safety, maybe even the best. The Browns franchise tag David Njoku. I didn't like that deal as much. You're a Browns fan. I just don't think he's at all worth a top 5 tight end. I think they would have been better off cutting him, to be completely honest. But I don't know if you have like a take on that signing, but
I don't know. I was surprised to see it, I'm being honest, but I really like him. It's just, I wouldn't say he's a top 5 tight end at all, but hey, I mean, I like him on the team. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe he was going to leave and somebody else really wanted him on the team. I don't know. I just want to see what happens next year because I think there's a lot of question marks with this team. So we'll see. I don't really have a big opinion on it.
Browns have a lot of stuff to do before
Yeah.
the season starts. I think they draft wide receiver, but that's for a later podcast. The Cowboys franchise tag Dalton Schultz. He had a really good season for them last year. I'd put him in the top 10 of tight ends, but I think it's a solid tag considering most of your other good players are under contract for the Cowboys. The Buccaneers franchise tag Chris Godwin. I'm very interested to see what the Buccaneers do this offseason because they have a lot of guys that are going to be free agents. They're losing a lot of players from these two teams, and Tom Brady retired. So they've got a lot to figure out. I don't know which direction they're going to go.
Do we even know their quarterback right now?
Kyle Trask, who was okay in college, but also he's Tom Brady's backup quarterback, which doesn't do anything. So we don't know, basically. I assume they'll try to sign somebody or trade for somebody. Then the Dolphins franchise tag Mike Gesicki, solid tight end, new head coach coming in there. I like that. I like bringing that offense back to see what the new head coach can do. He was the offensive coordinator with the Niners, and they obviously had a really exciting offense with Debo and Kittle and that run game. So I think that'll be fun to watch. The Chiefs franchise tag Orlando Brown and the Jaguars franchise tag Cam Robinson, a couple of offensive linemen. Kind of a big non-franchise tag. The Patriots did not franchise tag JC Jackson, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Raiders, think about it. That's my message. But so one of the biggest cornerbacks is on the market because the Patriots did not want to pay him. Big news, Aaron Rodgers is back with the Packers. As I said earlier, there are no contract details, but he just said that he will return this season. There were reports that he had this massive deal, but Rodgers basically said, no, I'm just playing one more year. There's no contract yet. So it makes sense. I think if they run the team back, the Packers are going to be really good again. Aaron Rodgers, it would have been weird for, at least in my opinion, for him to retire after back-to-back MVPs, but he's coming back. So Sorry, rest of the NFC North, you're still not going to win next year. The Chargers, Mike Williams is back. 3 years, $60 million deal. He was set to be a free agent, supposed to be highly paid, and he got highly paid by the Chargers. They went out, paid for him. So I didn't expect this to happen. I thought they were kind of gonna let him go, but they shelled out, and the AFC West is stacked, as I will say right now, because Russell Wilson got traded to the Denver Broncos. Wow. He got traded for Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. And if you are not familiar with NFL trades, picks are worth a lot in the National Football League. 2 first-round picks is ridiculous. And 2 second-round picks and a 5th-round pick. Noah Fant is a top 10 tight end. Shelby Harris is a very good young defensive lineman. I might go as far as to say that the Seahawks won this trade because of the way that the amount that they were able to get for Russell Wilson is ridiculous. I mean, you can't blame the Broncos either. I think it's a win-win, but I'd honestly give the win to the Seahawks. It was Russ and a 4th-round pick, so not too much. But in the NFL, you see star players getting traded for a 1st-round pick and a 2nd-round pick. And they were able to get Drew Lock isn't good, so whatever. Noah Fant is solid. Shelby Harris is really young. He's solid though. And 5 picks, 2 of them being in the 1st round. That's a good haul. And I don't know if you had a take on this, just as an outside perspective of Russell Wilson going to the Broncos.
Yeah, I think it's just exciting to see him in a new situation. It just wasn't fun to watch him on the Seahawks when the rest of their team was this bad. And yeah, I mean, I don't even think I have a full grasp of how trades in the NFL work just because they're so different. And sometimes you don't see the full thing for a few years. But I just want to see him on a team where, I mean, first of all, their defense is solid. The Seahawks defense was absolutely atrocious. Hopefully an offensive line that actually works. I'm just excited for him. I like Russell Wilson. I think he's kind of been not forgotten about, but I just don't think he's been getting the credit he deserves with how bad the rest of the team has been. And I guess we saw that last season, but I just want to see him in a new situation. I just love trades in general. So I'm just excited to see what he does, how his fit is, and just, I don't know, he gets a second chance at just like being great again. Because, the Seahawks were amazing a few years ago, but I don't know, they just haven't been able to do the right thing for him for what he's given back to the organization, I guess.
Yeah, his time with the Seahawks was well over. And the fact that they got that much, I was very impressed. The Chargers saw that deal happen and said, hey, let's go get Khalil Mack. So the Chargers acquired Khalil Mack from the Bears for a 2nd-round pick and a 6th-round pick. So, like, there's an example. Khalil Mack is an all-pro defender when healthy, and he got traded for a 2nd and a 6th.
That's crazy.
So basically, the AFC West is the best division in football, and it's really not close anymore because you have the Chiefs, who are going to go into next season as a top 3 team, no matter how you look at it. The Chargers, who just loaded up, they grabbed Khalil Mack, they re-signed Mike Williams. They were 1 win away from the playoffs. The Raiders made the playoffs this year, probably bringing back a lot of the same guys. And then the Broncos. I feel like we've said for the past 3 seasons with the Broncos is they'd be a really good team if they had a quarterback, and they got a really good quarterback. So, being a Raider fan, it's going to be probably pretty painful this season, and probably the next couple. But that's just the way it goes. There are 4 playoff caliber teams in that division, and I wouldn't be surprised if 3 or even 4 out of 4 made the playoffs next year. It is possible because there are 3 wildcard teams, but it's just ridiculous that. And I feel like it's only going to get stronger because every team in this division is going to say, okay, my turn. And, oh, now it's my turn. Like, we just have to keep competing with each other. And yeah, I don't think there's a argument for any other division being stronger than the AFC West right now. Yeah. Did you have something to say on that?
No, I just think it's funny that both of our teams are probably in the best two, which is just a little frustrating, but
It's crazy.
yeah, it's whatever. It's what it is.
The Seahawks followed up their trade with Russell Wilson by cutting Bobby Wagner, arguably the face of their defense, definitely the face of their defense. I was going to say the team, but then I remembered about Russell Wilson. I think it's obvious the Seahawks are in big rebuild mode, which sucks for guys like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett because they were just on a good team like 2 years ago. Bobby Wagner will find a home with a contender, and he's going to play really well for them. The final trade of the week, Carson Wentz. The Washington Commanders got their quarterback. They're starting their new era as the Commanders with Carson Wentz. He's not that good, honestly. There a lot of people wanted to call him underrated last year. I thought he was carried by Jonathan Taylor and that offensive line, to be completely honest. And they also choked a game against the Jaguars to make the playoffs. So that's Carson Wentz for you. He had an MVP season, but it was in 2017, so you can't really take that into consideration anymore. Yeah, he gets to play the Eagles twice a year, so that'll be interesting. But the Commanders got their guy, apparently, if they want to call it their guy. I don't know. They could be solid. Carson Wentz just has to limit the interceptions and be more of a game manager, Jimmy Garoppolo type of quarterback, I think, for them to be good. That's it for the NFL. A lot of stuff happened, and a lot more stuff is going to be happening in the next month or so as we lead up to the draft, which I'm very much looking forward to. But yeah, we got MLB, we got NFL. Let's move on to the NBA. The trade deadline was about 2 weeks ago. I want to say
I think it's like 3 almost
3 weeks
now.
ago. So let's do a quick check-in on the biggest deals, and let's start with the biggest one. Ben Simmons, James Harden, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, all those guys. What have you seen from, I guess, the output of that trade?
Yeah. First I'll go with the Nets side because it's a lot less exciting so far since we haven't seen Ben Simmons yet. So I won't really talk about the Ben Simmons part because that's just a complete question mark right now. Seth Curry has been the player that we know he is. He's shooting 43% or something from three, 15 points a game. I think he's a perfect fit alongside Kyrie and KD. And when Ben Simmons comes back, I mean, that's also perfect for them. Andre Drummond is another guy that's in there. He's a big body. He's actually been playing okay defense. Offensively, he's not exactly the center that I love because he just makes a lot of mental mistakes and he's kind of a bit inefficient, takes shots he shouldn't be. But those two players are pretty good role players for them. I think Seth Curry's a really good player and a really great fit. But obviously the exciting part that we've seen so far is the Sixers side of things. James Harden and Joel Embiid are as scary as what we thought they could be. And I've seen there's something that came out where they're like comparing him to Kobe and Shaq. Please stop. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Please don't do that. They won 3 championships. You can't start that.
Like if in 5 years they have 3 championships, sure, but they played 6 games together. So Come on now. But wow. I mean, if you've watched any of the Sixers games, it is absolutely ridiculous how these two players are able to control the game. I don't like foul baiting, but they're getting fouled. I mean, maybe they initiate the contact, but that's in the rules, and
they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can do it if they were good enough, and these two players are probably the best in the league at it. Just some quick stats: James Harden so far averaging 22 points a game, 7 rebounds, 11 assists. His playmaking has been amazing for them, and with Joel Embiid, that pick and roll. There's nobody who has been able to do a pick and roll with Joel as good as this. The best he's had was like a JJ Redick, who obviously is an amazing shooter, but I mean, the passing is not there. And even that was incredible. So James Harden and Joel Embiid, that pick and roll is, nobody's been able to stop it so far, except for last game where they got absolutely demolished by the Nets. But I think that's a bit of an anomaly. I don't know what really happened there. But I'm just going to go through the free throw shooting so far that's been happening. So James Harden's been averaging 8 free throws a game. I mean, that's kind of expected for him. That's a lot. Joel Embiid, on the other hand, I'll just read off the 7 games that's happened since then. 19 free throw attempts, 16, 14, 9, 13, 27 and 13. That's like a full player fouled out plus like another player in foul trouble plus another. I don't know. That's the whole team having to get their two centers basically out of the game if he's getting fouled that many times. That's just insane production from someone. And Joel, it's kind of, you looked at him and you're like, okay, I mean, his numbers are going to go a little bit down with James Harden, obviously. It's just kind of changed a little bit. He's getting the free throw line way more. He's putting up the same amount of points, 30.3. That's insane. With James Harden, I mean, this team looks so dangerous. The two other players I want to talk about after this trade, I'll start with the bad one. And that's just been a bad fit so far. I don't really know how this gets better, but that's Tobias Harris. It just looks a little bit of like a clunky fit right now. I expect Tobias Harris to get moved in the offseason. Maybe he has a good postseason run. I don't know. But he's averaging 12 points a game on 40% shooting. Not very good for catch and shoot threes. I don't know. He always decides to take a dribble when he gets past the ball for some reason. I don't know why he doesn't just shoot the ball. He's getting booed by Sixers fans. He's making a max. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, it would not be fun to be playing for them right now. And the only reason he's getting booed is because of the money he's making. But I cannot believe they paid him a max contract over Jimmy Butler, first of all. But I don't really know how they fix that situation because Tobias just hasn't really been a catch and shoot player, even though that's kind of what he should be in this situation right now. He kind of wants to create his own shot, and it's just not been working out very well. I don't know. Maybe it gets a little better. It's just the fit with James Harden and Joel. They're going to have the ball in their hands a lot. So I don't know how that happens. But the last guy is Tyrese Maxey, and he has been so much better since James Harden came. He's been able to get so many open shots. He's shooting 57% from three since he came. I mean, that's obviously going to go down, but wow. I mean, he's their third best player on this team. It's his second year in the league. He's got so much potential just to get better. If he's already this good, I mean, I don't know. The sky's the limit for this team, really. I'm really excited to see them. The announcers on this team are atrocious. They're the most biased fans ever, so it's hard to watch them. But when they are on national television, I'm tuning in every time. It's just really exciting, and I want to see what Ben Simmons does, but so far it's clear that one team has won this trade. You can say that because the other star hasn't played, but the fit has definitely been there for James Harden.
Yeah, and then the Nets went and beat them by 30.
Yeah,
so
that is true. That is true.
So there's that side of it. And from what I can see, what I've watched is when Kyrie, Seth Curry, and Kevin Durant are all on the floor, that team looks just so good offensively. Those are three guys that will hit their shots, and I feel like Ben Simmons can't hurt that. I think he comes in, he does, because he doesn't take away from those shots. He'll take his dunks and his layups and his drives, but I think he can only add to what Kyrie, Seth, and KD have going on right now. But what makes me lean towards the Sixers side is a certain somebody doesn't want to do what it takes to play every game for your team, and that's killing them, to be completely honest. And if they're the 8 seed, that's unfortunate, honestly. If he's really not going to do this, or the mandate isn't going to get lifted, whatever it may be, if they're going to go in as the lower seed, it looks like, at least, and that's going to hurt them.
Yeah, I don't think that the mandate's going to get lifted before the postseason, or the playoffs, I should say. I've been talking about baseball, but I just don't. I don't know. I haven't seen the full team so far because Ben Simmons hasn't played. I just can't get behind them right now. I mean, they're 500. They've lost 17 of their last 21 games. I mean, that's really bad. And yes, KD was hurt, but I mean, Kyrie can play half the games. If they match up with Toronto in the play-in, like, he's not playing. I mean, he's just not either way. Like, that's a big deal. I would take the Raptors over them right now, if I'm being honest.
With KD and Ben Simmons there?
I think so. I don't think they've been there long enough. I think the Raptors are a deeper team. I think that I don't know. I like that matchup a lot more than them. I just don't trust the Nets right now. And that's kind of blasphemy that I'm taking them over KD.
I would
But
trust KD to win a game against the Raptors. I think that's
yeah, I mean, it's a complete fair point. It's just, I don't know. They have not looked good. And yes, that one lineup is good, but like, how often are they on the court
well,
together?
yeah,
We've seen
that's
them
what
like
I'm saying.
twice. That's the
We
thing.
need that on the court more.
Exactly. And even let's say they beat the Raptors, they play the Heat or something. Kyrie's playing half those
Yeah, they're
games.
not beating the Heat.
I don't see them getting out of the first round, if I'm being honest, this year. And yes, it's for maybe next year the mandate's lifted, Kyrie can play, Ben Simmons gets a full year to play with them. And that's kind of the idea. I just don't see this year being their year at all. And sure, there's a shot. I mean, you can't not trust KD in the playoffs, but like if your number two is either not playing or Ben Simmons, I don't think I can trust that right now. And I just want to see Ben Simmons play because the fit seems like it would be great, but I just think KD needs a little bit more than that. And we'll see. But there's just a lot of what ifs in this team because, I mean, Kyrie can't even play right now. So we'll see.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm sure this will this will lead into what you have to say about it, is the Kings messed up. And we all knew it. Like everybody knew it the moment it happened. And Tyrese Halliburton is only proving everybody right. He's the face of the Pacers' future, and rightfully so. I don't have the numbers at all, but it's so obvious that he was the guy, and he for some reason wanted to be there maybe in Sacramento.
I don't know why, but he did.
And they said, no, we want De'Aaron Fox, who probably would have been very happy to leave. And Tyrese Halliburton is basically proving everybody right. And Sabonis there just doesn't make sense. He's putting up numbers, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'll start with the, I guess, worst side first too. And that's just the Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox duo right now. And yeah, Domantas is putting up stats, but he's not a guy who's going to carry a team with like 30 a game or whatever. I mean, 17 points a game, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 56% shooting. That looks great, right? And I mean, the team does look very different. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, that duo looks great. And what, they're 4-8, I think, together.
Yeah.
That's the point, is what we were saying was, it's not that Domantas Sabonis isn't worse than Tyrese right now. Like, I think if you put them together, Domantas maybe is a little bit better right now. Obviously, that's going to change. And that was our point, is what is the best case scenario? You make the 10th spot, and then you get a 10% chance at winning one game in the first round or something. Like, it's just, it doesn't make sense what they did. But De'Aaron Fox, I mean, he's stepped up since Tyrese left, and he's put up 28 points, 52% shooting, 7 assists, and it's not leading to wins. So that's the thing. And they look great. I mean, they're putting up the statistics. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what the Kings are doing. They had a couple games at the start when the pairing was like, when the trade just happened, and they looked fantastic. I think they won like 2 games in a row. And then since then, it's just like, okay, like you can put up stats, but it doesn't win. And it's not fun to watch, really. Sabonis is a great passer. I think that's getting kind of shown, but I don't know. I mean, you can have Domantas Sabonis on a team. I don't think he's a second option right now, especially if your first option is De'Aaron Fox. He is not a first option. But I'll move on to the more exciting part. That's the Pacers. Tyrese, like you said, I mean, we all knew it was going to happen. I'll just go through the stats a little bit. 19 points a game, 9.5 assists, 2.1 steals. The guy is shooting 51% from the field and 42% from 3. And guess what? That's basically his statistics when he was starting in Sacramento. It's almost like we knew it was going to happen, right? I mean, Indiana's not winning either, but who cares? It doesn't matter. Malcolm Brogdon just came back.
That's not what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's just Indiana got an absolute steal for Sabonis. And I'm very happy that they get to do a whole new rebuild, because we haven't even seen Miles Turner come back. TJ Warren, I don't know if that's really a guy that you're going to rely on, but there's some exciting young players on this team that I look forward to looking at. I think the pick and roll with Miles Turner and Tyrese is going to be great because both can shoot. And Tyrese is just an excellent playmaker. I mean, the fact that he is able to have this sort of playmaking at this young age, he's 21. This is the second year in the league for him. I mean, that's just not a skill that players just have this early on very often. It's just, that this guy is going to be a multi-time all-star. He's going to be an amazing player. I don't want to put a ceiling on him, but the Pacers got a really good player for them. And I mean, it just seems like this was one where I would have put a whole lot of money on the Pacers winning, and they just obviously have.
Yeah. Was there another trade that you had in mind to talk about, or?
I guess I could just really quickly go through CJ McCollum.
And he's played pretty well.
Yeah, that was a weird one, but I mean, he's looked great. He's putting up 27 points a game, shooting 50, 40, 90 splits basically. So, I mean, it's weird. The Pelicans are weird because we don't know what's happening with Zion. It just came out a couple pictures that Diego was just showing me before where
he's at practice.
He's smiling at practice. He doesn't look 400 pounds. I mean, I don't know. But
he didn't have a cheeseburger in his hand.
He did not. But I don't know. I think the Pelicans are trying to do what's right here, and they got another player who I think fits really well with Zion. Devontae Graham moving to the bench CJ McCollum is a huge upgrade from him. And it's cool to see someone thriving away from their old team when they've played there for so long. And I thought it was kind of a weird trade when I saw it. I was like, oh, were they trying to make the play in or whatever? CJ's got a couple years left on his deal. I think if Zion comes back, him, Brandon Ingram, Zion, and Jonas Valanciunas, I mean, that's a pretty big four right there. And I don't think they're contenders by any means, but hey, moving forward, I mean, that's a playoff team for sure. And I think if you're trying to make Zion happy right now, I think CJ's a perfect player for that. And I just really like the trade that they made here because it just is a good step moving forward for them.
Yeah. I think this is it. This was a great episode. Honestly, a little bit of breaking news. Buster Olney reported that the early sense in the MLB market is that teams are generally focused on pitching and trades. So we may be waiting a little bit for those position players. Makes sense. I think teams want to develop their pitching early. So they're going to go after their pitchers if they're going to get it now. So I guess expect pitchers to go off the board first and then position players maybe in about a week or so. I don't know. Nobody really knows. So we'll see. A lot of stuff still to be determined, but we're having a baseball season. Major League Baseball is back. That means in a couple of podcasts, we're going to do all of our predictions for the season. It's going to be a great one. We'll have a guest on for that one for sure. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, watching, like and subscribe, comment, do it all. Follow us on Instagram. We love you, Jason. Thanks for listening. We know you're there.
My parents probably.
Yeah, Karen and Chris, what's up? But yeah, this has been the World of Sports podcast. And for my co-host, Logan Ring, my name is Diego Sandoval, signing off.
Signing off.